What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we got to break down TSM Hazed, talking about how Valorant is gonna die, how it's becoming way too much like Overwatch, and it's becoming a lot more like an RPG rather than a freaking first-person shooter. So we need to talk about what are the big reasons that he thinks this is happening. Is it actually happening? And what are some things that Riot can do to actually fix this problem, if it really is a problem? We're gonna break all that down, but go to the GameLeap website right now down below for high quality, in-depth Valorant guides, tips and tricks, VOD reviews. We got everything that you could possibly need on the GameLeap website, but you gotta go check it out right now down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, basically on stream, TSM Hazed actually responded to a tweet talking about how Valorant is becoming a lot like Overwatch. So I'm gonna just play the clip. He's gonna read the tweet and give his own take about it right now, but let's roll it.
Okay, so this is the tweet we're talking about here. Valorant has slowly over time shifted to a state where it's way less about gunplay and legitimately feels more in line with RPG PvP. It feels like Overwatch again in a way it's developing. Guns feel too RNG/easy at the same time. Class can be shot while flying, running accuracy, etc. So I don't agree with everything that's said here, but I agree with the premise of his tweet, right? That it does feel like it's becoming more RPG PvP. It just does. And this was, I think, naturally going to happen. I expect it to happen in a game like this, but I thought with one of the lead devs being a Counter-Strike player, they would still stay focused on the gunplay and they wouldn't let it get out of hand. But unfortunately, it has.
Now, basically, as a general points for the tweet and what Hazed is saying, basically, Valorant is being shifted more towards like an RPG PvP. It's starting to feel more like Overwatch rather than a traditional TAC first-person shooter. Now, on top of this, Hazed specifically recalls an instance where his team was playing something very similar to the enemy team, and it was like Astra, Viper, Sova, Skye, Killjoy. One of the teams actually had a raise, and both teams were playing a comp very similar like this, and he said this quote, "Both teams didn't use guns. We used abilities only for the first minute of every round." He says it feels a lot like 5v5 Arena in World of Warcraft, and he claims that it's gonna get worse over time. He also proclaims that this is gonna be Valorant's downfall, with us only being a year into the game, and it's already this way. He thinks it's only gonna go worse, and that power creeping abilities is happening at an exponential rate. On top of that, he clarifies that he thinks we need massive buffs rather than nerfs to all abilities, and that abilities are just becoming way too powerful in a game that's supposed to be about shooting people in the motherfucking head. Now, let's really break this down step by step. What is exactly the problem that he's talking about? Is the problem really as bad as he says it is? And what is to be done about it if it is indeed a problem? So first, let's break it down exactly what the problem is, or summarize it basically. It's just that abilities are taking the forefront in Valorant. It's becoming a game far less about shooting people and far more about using abilities, and I think specifically Astra and Viper are two of the biggest examples. Viper getting that buff, Astra seeing, you know, crazy amounts of play right now in NA when she basically spends half the goddamn round on an iPad. Of course, Skye with multiple abilities, 3 flashes, an ability, a heal. Then we got Killjoy, which I've always had a problem with, just being like a little bit too far, a step too far as abilities are concerned, in my opinion. And then Raze has just been in the game since the beginning, of course, Sova. But basically what Hazed is saying is that we are a step too far. We're a little bit too far towards that Overwatch, towards that World of Warcraft PvP, and we're really venturing too far away from the core that should be more akin to CS. Now, of course, there might be a little bit of bias in there because, of course, Hazed comes from CS, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's being logically wrong. In fact, he claims that it's not affecting his opinion at all, and just because he came from CS doesn't necessarily mean that he wants Valorant to beat CS. He just doesn't want the game to move all the way, you know, to the MOBAs, to the Overwatches, to the shields, to the crazy abilities, and it seems that it is moving a little bit in that direction, if I'm being honest. Now, honestly, you see people on both sides of the camp. I've seen pretty much every side of the spectrum, where some people want the game to be just like a raw shooter where abilities are like almost nothing. They're very little, they're strategic, sure, they're useful in some situations, but they don't really have gigantic effects, right? And those are the people that are typically, they want the the game to be more like CSGO. And then I've seen the opposite end of the spectrum that is like, hey, make the game unique, make it something special, make it a combination between Overwatch and freaking CSGO. That's what we thought it was in the first place. Make it like this crazy hybrid thing, and it's fine if the game ventures away from that CS. And I understand both sides, but I do think that it is in the best interest of Riot to, at the very least, keep it on the CSGO end of that spectrum rather than the Overwatch end of that spectrum, because there are a lot of problems with Overwatch, and one of the biggest ones is mechanical skill is not rewarded and the game becomes a freaking clusterfuck with all the damn abilities. So in that regard, I 100% agree with Hazed. Now that being said, I think he's going a little bit overboard with this idea that the game will die, like this is the beginning of the end for Valorant if it keeps going down this path. I think it would be a much different game if we did keep going down this path, but it might not be what many people like or what you like, but that doesn't mean some people won't like it. So I don't think it's going to be the end of Valorant or anything like that, but I also think that this is a rather easy fix. Specifically the meta right now, especially when you have a meta that is dominated by Killjoy, dominated by Viper, dominated by Astra, these are clearly characters that enforce this type of strategy, this type of game that he's specifically alluding to. And if these characters are nerfed or out of the meta, all of a sudden, we got Duelist again, we got Jett again, we got Cypher again, and the game doesn't look like that at all. The game looks far different. And I really think that this is a buffs and nerfs problem, not necessarily a state of the game problem. Because remember, Viper has been in the game since the beginning. Yeah, she's powerful enough to see play, but it's not like her abilities weren't there. And yeah, Astra is a new addition, but perhaps she's just overtuned to the point where she has way too many stars, way too much capable utility, and if you tone that down, it will be a lot less about the abilities and a lot more about the gunplay. But I do want to address kind of the elephant in the room, and the big reason why I think that the game will keep being pushed down this path ever so slightly, even with buffs and nerfs taking place. And it's because of the rock and the hard place position that Riot is being put in, because you got to understand that one of the biggest ways, actually the only way to distinguish characters is their abilities, right? I mean, you can, cosmetics, of course, they look different, they have different backstories or whatever, but I'm talking about the difference between like an Astra and a Sova and a Phoenix. It all has to do with their abilities, and if you make abilities extremely weak, extremely minute, then the differences between these agents aren't that great, and there's a lot less hype that comes from releasing a new agent. I understand that every time a new agent comes out, Riot wants their game to get hyped up. Riot wants players to say, hey, holy shit, look at those crazy abilities, I want to try them out. But if the character comes out and it's just really small abilities, really, variations on what already exists, or abilities that don't have profound effects on the game, then it's not really breaking that much from the status quo. While it might be a really great character to add into like a pro meta or an existing meta, that doesn't really create a character that is fun and exciting. And I do understand that that is what Riot wants to do at the end of the day, even if that's not in the best interest of the pro players and just us playing the game. That being said, we do want the game to constantly have hype. We don't want the game to die. We want a lot of people to play the game. So we're also stuck in that rock and a hard place, stuck between balance and between keeping the game fresh and exciting. And I know the pro players in particular, they're going to feel a lot, different than the rest of us feel about this. But I do think that if any abilities or just ability-based compositions or metas become popular in general, it just takes like a snap of the fingers for Riot to nerf things. And yeah, maybe right now we live in a very ability crazy meta or time right now, but you gotta understand that Riot isn't gonna step in and make any big changes until after the big LAN event that happens this weekend. So definitely keep that in mind. I think most of us should just, not think that the world is freaking ending with Valorant. I think it's perfectly fine. There is no damage that can't be undone, and some people would argue that there isn't that much damage in the first place. But I really want to know your opinion about all this in the comments down below. Do you agree or disagree with Hazed? What side of the spectrum do you fit under, and why? I want to know your opinion about all that in the comments down below. But go to the GameLeap website right now in the links down below for in-depth advanced guides, VOD reviews, tips, and tricks. We got so much damn content on the GameLeap website. You just gotta go check it out right now so you don't miss out. But thank you so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video. Tell your mother to call me, and I'll see you next time.